astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you about the second half of December and the full moon that we have coming up in Cancer, either on the 26th or 27th of December, depending on where in the world you live. Now, just a couple of housekeeping items before I go into the astrology. Just to remind everyone, I've mentioned this before, but I'm not active, I'm not on Instagram. So I know there's several thousand people following a Pam Gregory, you're following a scammer. You're not following me. So just to remind you of that, I don't want you to lose money. Secondly, just to say again, the volume of emails is just really immense now, and I feel very bad actually because they're all sent with love and kindness. But the volume, it just isn't humanly possible for me to even read them all, let alone respond. So I feel that's quite bad manners because I don't have time, but it's just not possible. And I think you listen to this channel for my research or my insights, not just kind of firefighting emails. So just to say in advance, I'm terribly sorry if I'm not able to answer them all. And I hope you'll understand that. And linked to that, I'm getting about 30 to 40 requests a week from people saying, can I come and be interviewed on your show? Well, it's not a show, it's an astrology channel, and astrology will always be my language. And so I'm really going to stick to that because there are many really, well, several really excellent people out there running more general spiritual channels. I mean, Sandy Sedgbeer, who interviewed me last week, a few days ago, she runs a really high quality channel interviewing in a more general sense many spiritual people. So suggest you go to that kind of person. So yes, I've interviewed people about water, will continue to do so because water is a huge part of the astrology, looking down the timeline, and the blue light beings are from Sirius, that's our spiritual sun. So, but it will be very much linked to the astrology. I don't really want to start to go beyond that because I just don't have the time or the capacity. So hope you understand that. In December, as many of you are feeling, and I'm certainly feeling, the energy has really shifted. It shifted, well, for me, the last week in November. That may be related to the blue light surges, and I know many of you are feeling that way. So we are now into the energy that we're going to be experiencing in a much bigger way in 2024. It's going to be fast, it's going to be dramatic, it's going to be eventful. So let me begin with the detail of the astrology in the middle of the month, before I go to the full moon in Cancer. On the 16th of the month, we have the sun exactly trying to Eris, warrior sister of Mars, and the North Node, and also square to Neptune. And so this is really, I think, facilitating what I call a spiritual revolution, because Eris stands for truth, for justice, for freedom, for fairer societies. Eris is conjunct the North Node, has been all of this year, and is still operationally conjunct the North Node. So that is saying that our future path of soul's growth collectively is linked to that very strong stand for our sovereignty and for truth and for justice. But the sun being square to Neptune is bringing in that spiritual context. So I'd really see that aspect as representing a spiritual revolution for the highest good of all. And that's a really good phrase to keep in mind before I do any video or have any connection with people. I always set clear intention, this is for the highest good of all. And then it can only help whatever communication you're putting out. On the 18th of December, we have a beautiful trine between Mercury and Jupiter. This is going to be repeated again on the 19th of January because Mercury just gone retrograde at the new moon in Sagittarius. So Mercury is at 6 of Capricorn and Jupiter is at 6 of Taurus. So this is about big, expansive future visions, big thinking, where we're going to go, what are we planning for our future. So it's very beneficial And it also suggests, because they're both in earth signs, Capricorn and Taurus, that we're going to make these ideas practical. We're going to make them grounded. We're going to make them realistic and achievable. And they could well be linked to the financial system, because both Taurus and Capricorn are really linked to that. Also, food production, agriculture, that kind of thing. So new ideas are coming forward, and that aspect, as I say, will repeat again on the 19th of January. Now, if you have any planets or aspects round about sort of 3 to 7 degrees of the fixed signs, because Jupiter is at 6 of Taurus, you will be sort of 3 to 7, I'd say 3 to 7 of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. You may well be feeling this sense of expansion or personal growth or opportunity coming in for you. And remember, the house that Jupiter transits through in your birth chart for about a year usually expand, usually beneficially, the affairs of that house. It can bring success or recognition or opportunity. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website, go to the link below, and you get a 2-part video series that you can use forever to get a better understanding of the meaning of these updates that I do so regularly for you in your life. That is not a personal birth analysis, that these are teaching videos to teach you how to do it. So then the 19th of the month, this is very close to the Capricorn solstice. And by the way, I have done a separate video with David Farrell on the Capricorn solstice. I'm going to put the link for that below. It's very positive, actually, this Capricorn solstice, striking the tuning fork for the next upcoming 3 months. So do take a look at that, because it's such a big part, obviously, of this second half of December. But I don't want to repeat everything that I said in that video. But just before that, on the 19th, we have Mercury sesquiquadrate Uranus. This is a real call for truth and more rebellion coming out here. I mean, 2024 is a very big year, I think, of revolution and rebellion in a much bigger way than the last 3 years. And that is linked to more truth coming out. And with Uranus, you always get this kind of urgency. It's almost an irritability. Come on, come on. The truth is coming out, and we are going to stand our ground in that. So that feeling is going to build more and more and more as we move into 2024, and even January is a very big month for that. So urgent that we speak our truth is how I think I would read that. And then on the 20th, we have Venus opposing Uranus, and this is at 19 degrees of Sagittarius and Taurus, respectively. And you may be feeling some intensity that could be manifesting in a relationship, intensity around any control or manipulation, perhaps, and wanting more freedom, more independence. That may apply to your relationships. This may come up in the larger world in terms of currency volatility, moves on the stock market, that kind of thing. Because Uranus-Venus hard aspects, are very commonly linked to financial volatility, currency volatility. But this is happening the same day as Mars is in an exact quincunx to Uranus. Hard aspects between Mars and Uranus are very linked to freedom, demands for freedom, individual freedom. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want limitations. I don't want constraints. I want to be me. I want to be independent. I want to be free to do my own thing. Very strong. And that's reinforced yet again, that rebellious kind of uppity, feisty behavior potentially is reinforced because the moon in Aries is exactly conjunct Eris in Aries on that day too. So we might really just before, right before the solstice, we may feel that rebellious energy revving up. On the 22nd, as I say, 21st, 22nd, that's the solstice, depending on where in the world you live. Very positive, very expansive aspects coming in. If you can't think of a better mantra, welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love is a very good one to fall back on. So now oh, and just before we get to the full moon on Christmas Day, if you celebrate Christmas Day, we've got a beautiful trine between Venus and Neptune at 25 of Scorpio, Pisces, respectively. That's lovely. It's very romantic. It's sensitive. It's idealistic. It's also it loves beauty as well, aesthetics, beauty. So that's a lovely aspect to have for Christmas Day. So let me now share my screen for the full moon in Cancer. Hopefully you can see that. Now, this happens Pacific time on the 26th of December at 4:33 in the afternoon. It happens UK time the next day, 27th at 0 hours 33, so just kind of half past midnight. So a full moon is always where we have the sun and moon opposite each other. So sun 4 degrees 58 of Capricorn, moon at 4 degrees 58 of Cancer. And this is a third full moon in a row of 6 round, and this is only 2 minutes off 5 degrees of the signs. And so if you have any planets or aspects between kind of 4 and 6 degrees of a sign, almost doesn't matter what signs, because these 6 full moons are going to catch them one way or another. There could be quite a strong sense of completion going through these few months. As I say, we're kind of halfway through that series. The moon is very highlighted here because the moon rules Cancer, and Cancer is a beautiful sign for this time of year. It's very caring, it's nurturing, it's loving, it's sensitive, it's sympathetic and empathetic, wanting to kind of cozy down and be with loved ones, friends and family. And yes, there is a strong need to feel nurtured yourself, but also an instinctive understanding of what other people need to feel nurtured. It's very motherly energy, Cancer. It's really beautiful. So and it's interesting, this opposition, because the moon represents our need for emotional security in Cancer, and the sun represents our need for economic, financial security. So certain aspects of that may be coming to light at this point. So see where this falls in your chart, 4 degrees of Cancer, and see if anything is coming to culmination, completion, closure for you, or it's shining a light on something that you weren't aware of before. Now, something that's very supportive in at this full moon is a series of sextiles, which is quite interesting because we have the computer hasn't picked it up here, but we have a sextile between the Sun and Saturn here at 2 of Pisces. We also have Saturn in another sextile here to Jupiter, and we have Jupiter in another sextile here to the moon. So we have a beautiful kind of 3 sextiles happening, which are very supportive. Sextiles are aspects, 60-degree aspects of opportunity that may be coming up at this time. And you know, particularly this aspect of Moon, Jupiter, Cancer, Taurus, this is beautiful for nurturing of all kinds, fertility. They're very supportive. It feels as if we really are hatching something for the future that is very positive and expansive. We have this other beautiful sextile between Jupiter and Saturn. And we see this in the charts. I see this in the charts of people sort of like economists who have this wonderful balance between expansion, growth, and caution, and cautious optimism as well. And so that's a very good kind of expansion caution aspect that's coming in. Don't rush too quickly. um, think think things through thoroughly before you take action, and very stabilizing, these sextiles. And also the Sun to Saturn here again is a very stabilizing aspect. So those feel very positive. We've also got the Sun in this beautiful trine to Jupiter, bringing this sense of the future, higher consciousness, expansion, visions. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in 2024. Now, the Saturn is also, and I think I mentioned this in the Capricorn solstice video, is conjunct one of the 4 royal stars of Persia called Fomalhaut, Fomalhaut. Fomalhaut is at 3 degrees of Pisces. Fixed stars only move a degree every 72 years, so they're really in that same position for a lifetime. Fomalhaut is not only one of the 4 royal stars of Persia, it's very linked to Archangel Gabriel. There's a beautiful aspect of protection here, also linked to being the spiritual teacher. So if you have any natal planets, I mean, I have my moon, interestingly, at 2 degrees of Pisces. So it really is a signature of a spiritual teacher. So very interesting. Just to point out also that Jupiter at 5 degrees of Taurus is exactly at the degree where we had the lunar eclipse, 5 degrees of Taurus, on the 28th of October. So I don't know if you can look back to the 28th of October, the lunar eclipse, if anything was happening for you, see the house it was falling in, because you may get some clues there, or around your finances, or you rearranging your finances in some way, you know, closing an episode in your finances, and now at this full moon, that is taking another step forwards in the rearrangement of your finances. It's like an echo of whatever was happening at the lunar eclipse on the 28th of October. So yeah, so I think a lovely thing to do at this full moon in Cancer, also at the solstice, as we are about to enter 2024, and this goes way, way beyond New Year's resolutions, is to have an image, an image that you will aim for, a version of yourself, a higher version of yourself that you are aiming to become by the end of 2024. Who are you aiming to become as a state of being, not just a list of New Year's resolutions? Who are you aiming to become as a state of being by the end of 2024? I know for me, anything I could have anticipated by the end of this year, I think has been far exceeded in kind of the way I feel I've grown and developed, and that's really accelerated in the last few weeks. And the same would be very, very true, I think, for next year and for you, each of you, in 2024, because we're going to have so many quantum leaps next year. The aspects that I've just touched on of Venus, Uranus, just about hold operational, and also Mars is just about still quincunx Uranus. So go back to what I've just said a few minutes ago about those aspects too. The North Node will stay in Aries all of 2024, and it won't shift back into Pisces until January 2025. So this really is a very strong, yet another signature that we have to become strong, resilient, more self-sufficient, more pioneering, more sure of our inner power, our inner selves, a real sense of, you know, autonomy, and I know who I am. And what's going to help that as well? Here we have Chiron being stationary. This S means it's stationary, changing direction. And as I've always said, whenever planets are changing direction one way or the other, they are magnified. Now, what's important about this is it's going to be exactly conjunct to the North Node at a very, very big eclipse that we have in April, a total solar eclipse at 19 of Aries on the 8th of April. I'll be talking 10 tons about that, and so will every other astrologer. So Chiron in Aries, Chiron in our birth charts is wherever we have the original wound, and everyone has it somewhere, because we are meant to turn that, whatever that wound is in our lives, into leadership as we move through our lives. Now, people born between February 1969 and March 1977 will have Chiron in Aries. Aries, the keywords are I am, I exist, I am. So people who are born with Chiron in Aries have a wound around that I amness, usually. There's a question mark when they're very tiny of, do I have a right to exist? Either because of the family they were born into, or the society, or the culture, or whatever. And so that can bring about a victim consciousness, which I think is, is very prevailing, really. And I'm going to come back to that later in the video. But what this station of Chiron offers us at this full moon in Cancer, which is so much about self-care as well, is and it will be given another very big opportunity at the total solar eclipse in April, 8th of April, is a collective healing around victim consciousness, a collective healing around victim consciousness. So that's big. That's big because that can potentially shift the quantum wave structure and change our future. Pluto here, as it is at the Capricorn eclipse, is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Now, remember, the last degree of a sign, 29 degrees of a sign, is known as the anaretic degree, and therefore the more shadow side of that sign may express at this time. We are going to be having so many demands, I think, for truth, for freedom, for equality, for justice, moving into 2024, that the way this will manifest, and Pluto is going to be at that 29 degree anaretic point of Capricorn, not only here, but through January, September, October, and November next year, and then we'll not be in Capricorn again for around about 240 years, is there will be increasingly urgent and desperate attempts to keep the status quo, the Capricorn status quo of power over what we have always known in terms of verticality and top-down structure. But it will feel increasingly hollow because of the rising Aquarian and Uranian that rules Aquarius energy. It will feel increasingly hollow and increasingly potentially desperate and therefore extreme. So be aware of that, because as we move into 2024, both sides will be heightened. The demand for freedom and truth will be heightened, the revolutionary aspect will be heightened, and so will this anaretic expression of 29 degrees of Capricorn, if you follow my meaning, which I'm sure you all do. The moon here is conjunct the dwarf planet Chaos at 1 degree of Cancer. And the myth of chaos, as you may know, is that heaven was ripped from earth, but the ultimate purpose of chaos, and here remember it's on the world axis, the first 2 degrees of any, well, 0 of the cardinals represents the world axis, so 2 degrees either side of that, up to 2 degrees of the cardinals, back to 28 degrees of the mutables, is on the world axis. So dwarf planet Chaos here is on the world axis, i.e. thrown onto the public stage in some way. So the purpose of chaos is to reunite heaven with earth. And I think that is absolutely where we are headed with our energy from now on. We are reuniting heaven with earth in so many ways that I've talked about. The sun is conjunct Ixion at 4 degrees of Capricorn, one of my absolute favorite dwarf planets. And I was talking about this with David Farrell at the Capricorn solstice video. I'm going to again quote the words of Alan Clay, who runs the Dwarf Planet University. He's a fabulous teacher, and these are his words, and I love them for Ixion. That Ixion represents seeker consciousness. It encourages us to develop our authenticity and follow our bliss. It's finding joy through simplicity. This is the wild child. Love it. This is independence of spirit. And the question that Ixion asks are the rules we are playing by, the right ones? And that couldn't be a more fitting theme, I think, given all I've just said in this video, as we enter 2024. I don't think I could find almost a better theme to set up next year. I'm sure you follow my meaning here. Okay, so other things to point out at this full moon are that Mercury and Mars are tightly conjunct here. Mercury is actually on the galactic center, which is at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, and also conjunct the dwarf planet Vada, 26 degrees of Sagittarius. Neptune is in a long-term square, 25 of Pisces, all of next year to Vada and the galactic center. But Mercury being conjunct this point enables us to tap into this higher wisdom, this raw plasma crystalline energy with which we are creating our world. And of course, the whole myth of Vada from the creation myth was she with her husband Manwe. They were responsible, it is said in the creation myth, for creating our original cosmos. Vada was responsible for placing the sun and moon and the stars in the sky and setting them on their way. So Mercury gives us a kind of channel, a direct, a direct go-between. He's the messenger, Hermes, Mercury, to accessing some of that very high frequency energy and creating our new world, which is what we're doing right now, but within a spiritual context. Neptune. Mercury square Neptune in general is wonderfully, I don't regard squares as at all challenging, actually. They're just the grit in the oyster that produces the pearl. They're activators. This is beautiful for any creativity, creative writing, poetry, art, music. It's a creative inspiration. So wonderful time to do that as well. I would say with this Mercury Mars, this sharpens the mind. We may be becoming extremely enthusiastic and vocal about our future visions, what we are dreaming in for our new Earth. It can be a bit quick off the trigger because this is mutable fire as well. Mars energizing mutable fire. So it can be a little sometimes short-tempered, speaks too quickly. So be very careful to take a breath. Be very careful on social media, I would say, with what you're writing and what you're responding to, because this can be also quite dogmatic and opinionated in Sagittarius as well. So just take a breath before you speak or before you write and react. It can be a little fast off the trigger. We also have Pluto in a kind of waning square to the nodal axis. The south node is, as you know, always opposite the north node, so it's at 21 of Libra. But this is this is waning now. We've had Pluto, as I've banged on all year, square to that nodal axis, really forcing us to choose between love or fear, or victim or co-creator consciousness. And this 2023 was the big year of choice. I couldn't have said that more loudly, but we have now made our choices individually. Are we at the fear end or the love end? Are we at the victim or the co-creator end? We couldn't, I couldn't have said it more clearly. We've made our choices. And so that is our setup also for 2024 going forwards. Something else just to point out, and I mentioned this in the Capricorn solstice video, is that Sedna, with an 11,400 year orbit, is at 2939 of Taurus in a tight trine to Pluto, and they are holding hands in this dance through 2024. Both have a big theme of transformation, both have a big theme of surrendering, letting go as they move out of those earth signs of Capricorn and Taurus, letting go of what represented the old fashioned, the 3D security. And remember Sedna's myth that her fingers were chopped off by her father. She was trying to get back in the canoe in the storm, and he chopped her fingers off, and she died and floated down to the deep, transformed into beautiful sea creatures of whales and dolphins and turtles. So it was a complete metamorphosis for her. But it wasn't a great time as her father chopped off her fingers. So there's a big theme here about the betrayal of the patriarchy and letting go of those old systems, old world, old security. So that could also suggest some big financial moves, either in December or through 2024. Also, we've got Uranus in Taurus that suggests that too. I think as they move hand in hand into air signs, Pluto into Aquarius and Sedna into Gemini, they will be forming a grand air trine to the supergalactic center, which is at 2 degrees of Libra. I haven't put it in, it's at 2 degrees of Libra. And so that will be running all through 2024. That will bring up very big issues around AI, I feel, because Aquarius, which Pluto is moving into, ruled by Uranus, is very linked to technology and AI. Gemini is very linked, I think, to AI. Somebody sent me a link just yesterday that Google have developed some new technology called Gemini, bizarrely, that's linked to AI. So they've clearly anticipated this. So, but in a grand air trine to the supergalactic center, remember the galactic center is at 2627 of Sagittarius. The supergalactic center is at 2 degrees of Libra. The great attractor is at 14 degrees of Sagittarius. So just remember that, because I always get questions about that. So this grand air trine all through 2024, I think very clearly one of the big themes will be, what is our relationship to AI moving forwards? Because that will be coming in fast in all kinds of ways that we may barely be aware of. What is our relationship to AI? And what do we choose our relationship with AI to be, more importantly? So, and then as a final aspect, I can stop sharing my screen now. Right at the end of the month, December, we have Jupiter moving stationary direct, moves stationary direct at 5 degrees 34 of Taurus. So a few days to either side of that. And again, if you have any planets in fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, between kind of 3 and 7 degrees of those fixed signs, you'll be feeling perhaps a big opportunity coming up, or some sense of recognition or expansion of your business, depending on where it falls in your chart. But this can really launch us, I think, into 2024 with a sense of optimism, vision, hope, expansion. It's very interesting that the first, second of January, Mercury also moves direct, and all planets will then be moving direct, apart from Uranus, which moves direct on the 27th of January. So there's this feel of warmth for out of the traps and a feeling of momentum, speed, lightness, and boy, it's go time, as it were, in many respects. So because it's going to be so fast, because it's going to be so eventful and dramatic next year, practice now developing that center, that anchor. I've said this many, many times. And you can do this with bare feet on the grass. You can do it with candle gazing. You can do it with closing your eyes, dropping into your breath, or imagine that you're breathing in and out through the heart. Such simple, free ways of doing this, but have a go-to way for you. That's your kind of default method that you know within seconds, just warmth. Okay, I'm in my anchor and I feel grounded, especially when any difficult news comes at you, warmth. I'm not going to be knocked off my perch with that. I'm going to go into my butter melting in the sun, dropping into stillness, dropping into my breath. That is one of the best possible gifts and tools and skills you can have as we go into 2044. Actually, for everybody, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. And it's so simple and it's all for free. I've talked of lots of ways to do that. And I'll be talking more as we go through next year. But think simplicity. Think simplicity. Jupiter is still in Taurus until May, and then it really takes off in Gemini. Uranus is still in Taurus, but it's not really a stabilizing factor. It's a destabilizing factor in Taurus. Think simplicity. Think center. Think stillness. Think 0 point. You have your own special, easy way, easy access within seconds. You can drop into that. Really recommend that because we are going to be moving in 2024. Just to say before I come back to my ramblings, a lot of people are asking me about alternative healing technologies, and I'm certainly not an expert. I don't endorse or have links or get commission on any of these things. All I can talk about is my own personal experience. So in terms of personal experience, I've had experience of the harmonic egg. I think it's a light chamber. Also, the tachyon chamber is a Palladian light chamber. The Itera care wand, and I will put the spelling of that underneath. It's like a long, skinny hairdryer. That is also light technology. PEMF devices, I think that stands for pulse electromagnetic frequency. I've had experience of all of those, personal experience. They've all been very beneficial. I can say that for sure. But you may have a different experience yourself. A lot of people are asking me about EE technology. I've had no personal experience of that at all, so I can't say, but they have certainly expanded to 370 centers across the world now. But each of you must use your discernment and really go by people you know and trust recommending it, or obviously try them yourselves and get your own personal experience. So I just want to come back to some thoughts about how this thing that dogs me, how we create our reality, because as I've mentioned before, I believe 100% it is absolutely the case that we create our individual reality by our individual frequency, and therefore by logic we therefore have to say that the collective consciousness is the collective reality, rather the reality we all see out there in our 3D world is created by our collective consciousness. And this has only really landed for me in the last year or so, but if that is the case, generally we haven't fully realized our power as co-creators in creating that. And it's kind of completely unacceptable to us that we may have created some of the real horrors in the world through our anger, through our hate, our division, our polarity, our fear, that we have created what's going on in the world. That's very uncomfortable. And I know I may even get people who are angry about this, who can't accept that. But if we follow the logic of the physics through, that that must be the case, and therefore we may not in the past have thought that we were powerful enough to do that, or fully realize that that is the result of our collective consciousness. And this is a bit akin to, and I know other people have talked about this analogy of, if you're looking in the mirror and you see a frown, you can't change the frown by going into the mirror. You have to change the frown by smiling. It has to come from you to change the mirror, to change the reflection back to you, to change the reality that you're seeing. I think that's quite and it's not an original analogy, but it's quite an accurate one. And so what we do, therefore, is unknowingly, unconsciously up to now, and I've only kind of clocked it in the last year, if we are all by our collective frequency creating what's happening in the world, then because we haven't been conscious of it, we blame it. We think it's an objective coming at us reality, and we blame it for giving us a hard time. So can you see the kind of madness of that loop? I hope I'm being clear here. So I think what we have to do to remedy that is, one, recognize that we are incredibly powerful co-creators, and just start in really simple ways. Always set your intentions in the present tense. I'm easily finding a car parking space. That's simple. Start from there and work up. And on my morning walks in horrific weather in the UK at the moment, I have a rolling mantra of some kind. I'm already stepping onto my highest timeline, that kind of thing. I'm experiencing more joy in my life already. And just watch in little ways the shifts in the dynamics in relationship, how those mantras, those intentions that you are expressing, you have to set it in present tense. Otherwise, if it's future, you'll keep on pushing it away. Start to manifest in your life. Just start from really basic stuff. So recognize that we are powerful co-creators. Be mindful and observe. Do it as an experiment, a game in your life. What are you creating? Observe that connection between your frequency, your intentions, your what you're broadcasting 24/7, and seeing what's playing back in your life, particularly if there are any shifts in the dynamics of relationships. And recognize that we have to go beyond this hamster wheel that we've lived in for thousands and thousands of years and lifetimes of death, poverty, misery, war, victim. People writing to me at the moment about the war in the Middle East, and a few months ago they were writing to me about the other war further east, and months before that I can't remember. It just goes on and on and on. Of look over here, look over here. We have to break. In order for us to be the trailblazers and the cycle breakers, we have to recognize that the source is our frequency. We are the source, and I don't mean that in any grandiose way. I mean in a very simple way, that we are each the source of our own frequency. We have to be. So recognize that because consciousness is primary, everything comes from consciousness, everything comes from frequency. That's where we make the change. That's where we make the shift to create a different reality out there. I hope I'm being clear and making sense here. So, and remember what that wonderful Buddhist author, he's Tibetan Buddhist and also very deeply enmeshed in quantum physics, Paul Levy, says. He says that the choice of where we put our attention is not only an act of creation in itself, it is a superhero power. He calls it a superhero power, being aware of where we are putting our focus and our attention in any moment. It's a superhero power. And I think Dr. Joe Dispenza would also agree with that. So I'm on the verge, if I dare say, of another particularly rambling that I feel is kind of brewing, that I may put out if I have time before the end of the year, because I'm going down some very deep rabbit holes right now, that really started in the last week of November. And there were some big energy shifts for me. So anyway, that isn't for today. I hope that's helped you. If you want my information about my books, my videos, my long monthly newsletter, just check out my website, pamgregory.com. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, a millionfold, for all you've given me this year in terms of love, of care, of good wishes, of support, of likes and shares, and all of those things you do. Although I never ask for those, but I'm deeply, deeply grateful, and we really are in those, particularly in those 15-minute meditations on a Sunday evening at 7 o'clock UK time. We are building such a momentum of energy, of this real quantum wave of love that we are building, and it gets stronger every week. So recognize the more widespread that is, we really are creating a love revolution, as Dr. Jude Caravan so rightly says. God bless, have a wonderful festive season, and I'll be back very soon, undoubtedly, with more videos. Bye for now. Thanks so much for listening.